Today, we're digging into a really complex and crucial piece of history. It's about the 5 civilized tribes. That's the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole nations, and their deep calculated involvement in chattel slavery.
Exactly. And our goal here is really to unpack that history and look at the legal debt that stems from it, specifically what's owed to the descendants of American slavery, the freedmen.
What's immediately striking from the sources is this idea that their adoption of slavery wasn't simple assimilation. It's described as a dangerous political performance.
Yeah, that's a key phrase. It was quite strategic. They were deliberately adopting certain Euro-American institutions like centralized governance and chattel slavery.
To demonstrate civilization, is that the idea?
Pretty much. To show they were civilized according to those external standards and hopefully gain some leverage against the U.S. expansionism.
How involved was the U.S. government in actually encouraging this? Was it direct?
Oh, very direct. We found evidence, specific instances where U.S. agents literally told tribal leaders that owning African slaves would, and I quote, tend more to civilize them.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So this wasn't just, passively going along. These nations created their own harsh slave codes, things like restricting property ownership, controlling movement, basically mirroring the laws in the southern states.
So the system was fully operational within the nations. I mean, the sources mention that really chilling event in 1842.
The rebellion.
Yeah, where over 200 enslaved people from the Cherokee and Creek nations tried to escape to Mexico.
Right, and the Cherokee National Council actually organized a militia, a search party, specifically to hunt them down.
And they brought them back, using their own government structure as slave catchers. That's powerful.
It absolutely is. And that commitment, that alliance to the system, it went all the way to the Civil War. They allied with the Confederacy.
Explicitly to protect slavery.
Yeah. Explicitly. And you see that embodied in figures like Stan Waddy, the Cherokee leader. He was famously the very last Confederate general to surrender, June 23, 1865.
So after the war, after that surrender, the U.S. steps in with these Reconstruction treaties in 1866. What did they demand?
Well, the treaties were incredibly clear on paper. They required total emancipation, obviously, but also the extension of full citizenship rights to the freedmen.
Full citizenship, like the same rights as tribal members.
Exactly. The Cherokee Treaty used the phrase, all the rights of native Cherokees. And for the Choctaw and Chickasaw freedmen, the treaties even specified land a 40-acre allotment.
Okay, so the treaties seemed clear, but did they stick to it?
No, almost immediately there was pushback. Despite the federal mandate, many of the nations put in place their own black codes.
Like Jim Crow laws, basically.
Very similar. Vagrancy laws, other restrictions. There were lynchings, attempts to maintain a racial hierarchy, directly undermining what the 1866 treaties promised.
And then things got even more complicated with the Dawes Rolls, right? That process from roughly 1899 to 1914.
Yes, the Dawes Commission. That process basically cemented racial segregation into the official tribal roles. They created separate categories.
Citizen by blood BB and Freedman F.
Correct. And putting freedmen on that separate F role had huge consequences.
How did that segregation make it easier for speculators to get freedmen land?
It was quite strategic. Because freedmen were on a separate role, often without the same proof of lineage requirements as the by-blood citizens, the federal restrictions on selling their land allotments were lifted sooner.
Ah, okay. So faster alienation of land.
Exactly. Made it incredibly easy for non-native speculators to swoop in and buy up freedmen land quickly, destroying that chance at stability the treaties were supposed to provide.
And at the same time, this segregation enabled the $5 Indian scheme.
Precisely. While freedmen were losing land, you had white settlers bribing corrupt officials to get themselves fraudulently listed on the by-blood rolls to claim land and benefits.
And that fraud is a direct source of that common myth today about white people having some untraceable native ancestor.
It's a major origin point, yes. That documented fraud feeds directly into it. So connecting all this, you see this pattern of non-compliance, especially severe with the Choctaw and Chickasaw.
The Chickasaw Nation explicitly refused to adopt their freedmen, right?
They did. And this history has created this outstanding legal debt. But, importantly, federal courts have weighed in.
Like the Van V. Zink case in 2017.
Exactly. That ruling forced the Cherokee Nation to stop requiring by-blood descent for citizenship, upholding the 1866 treaty. It affirmed those rights.
So, given that history and the court rulings, what's the specific remedy being called for now? What settles that debt?
It's about specific reparations, based directly on the treaty failures. Two main things. First, direct cash payments.
To compensate for being excluded from tribal services and trust funds over generations.
Yes, exactly. For that long-term exclusion from benefits derived from tribal resources. And second, land allotments.
The original 40 acres or its monetary value today.
Correct. Delivering on that specific land promise made back in 1866.
So wrapping this up, what's the core issue for you, the listener, to take away? It seems the conflict is about tribal sovereignty versus what?
Versus federally guaranteed rights.
Yeah.
The argument is that sovereignty is being used by some nations as a shield, effectively, to continue racial discrimination and ignore obligations set way back in Reconstruction.
Which leads to a really provocative final thought.
Right. If the U.S. government pushed slavery on these nations, then wrote the treaties to supposedly fix it, should the U.S. now use its power over trust funds, over land to force compliance from those nations, still not fulfilling the 1866 agreements?
Yeah, what level of federal intervention is actually needed to fix an injustice that the U.S. itself had a hand in creating? Something for you to think about.